We are going to copy some of the things that they're doing, and we have the Covey training again for 2 days out of our Thanksgiving break. We are bringing them back in to do 2 more days of training for us and the middle school. And we felt like that this year is a transition year for us, because next year we're going to all be together. So we were looking for something that we could use to start bringing our staffs together as a team and begin the teaming process and getting to know one another. And we felt like that the Covey training actually met all the bill for that. And the middle school teachers are as excited about it as we are. And our children are now, they know the 7 habits. And when Mr. Rotzi talks to them, he says, now, is this a win-win situation? Or, you know, you've got to be proactive. And they're beginning to use the language in doing that. And we're trying to teach our students to take responsibility for their own actions.
Can I tell a story?
Sure, go ahead.
I spent the night with the little fellow that part of the leadership things that they shake your hand and greet you and say, how do you do? We're so happy you're here. And we're training them to do that as well. And each room has a greeter. But Ty spent the night with me, and of course, asleep sometimes these days. So I he woke up in the middle of the night and he said, sit up in the bed, he said, yes, I'm being proactive. And he down. I just had
But that shows, though, that they are learning what the habits are. And if you notice, all of our bulletin boards out in the hallway deal with the 7 habits. And we also are becoming a professional learning community. This past week, the principals had training with Dee Cockrell from RESA on becoming a professional learning community. And we went to a training last year and we started the process. And it's not as easy of a process as what most of us would think, because you're having to do a lot of different things that you haven't done before. And it's teaming with your with teachers, but it's also allowing them to look at what your strengths and weaknesses are. And typically in the past, teachers that go in their classroom and they shut their door and they're in their own little world. But now we're bringing them out and asking them to please share. And one 2nd grade teacher was telling another one that they were having a lot of difficulty teaching this one skill and wanted to know how the other teachers taught that skill. And that's part of being a professional learning community. That and just the process of looking at student work and keeping the students in the forefront of everything we do. And making decisions totally based on our students. The last one is RTI, and we have two real strong Title I teachers who are providing interventions for our students, and they do a wonderful job. I was observing one this past week, and she was taking the Science or Social Studies textbook, and she was teaching them how to look at the subtitles and look at the chapters to find information. And she would say, okay, look at these 3 chapters here, which one would you find this information in? And she was just doing a wonderful job. And those are questions that they are asked on the West test. Our innovative programs is a professional learning community. Tech Time, we are working with our teachers. They're using more technology this year than they've ever used. I see it in use every time I go in classrooms. They're using the smart boards, the data projectors, the document cameras, and their laptops, and they're using them to enhance their teaching. Book studies, our teachers stay after school a couple times a month, and we do book studies, and we just finished one called It's Being Done. And this was person, Karen Chenoweth, is the author, and she visited schools throughout the United States that were succeeding despite all the odds. And she wrote about the characteristics of those schools. So we have sat down and read about each of those schools and broke it down and looked at what are they doing that we are not. And actually we found that we were doing pretty much everything they were. And these were the poor of the poor. They came from homeless shelters, their students did. They had prostitutes out on the street in the middle of the day in front of the schools, just you name it, and these schools had experienced it, but they were still being successful. Their test scores were phenomenal, and for the most part, we are doing pretty much everything that they did. The one difference that I saw that we have not done yet, but we're getting to that point, and that was that several of the schools had developed an individual learning plan for each student. Now that takes a lot of hard work and dedication.
We're in that direction.
And we're heading in that direction with our data notebooks that our students are keeping and stuff, but we haven't arrived at that point yet. But we're going to get there. With TIS this year, the county has hired a technology integration specialist who visits our school once a week to help us with our technology issues. And we have an outstanding parent program. Our special ed teacher uses the Wilson Reading Program, which is an awesome reading program for our special needs students. And we even use some of those techniques with our kids who qualify for Tier 2 intervention. And we are doing after school, we'll start Wednesday, and we will have tutoring by teachers for Tier 3, and then our Covey leadership. Our facility needs our new school. And then facility upkeep. I know that next year we will be in the new school, but in the meantime, we've got to keep this one up as well because our kids are here now. And they've been doing a wonderful job this year. We can just get rid of the odor in the boys' restroom. And we've tried everything on that, believe me. But that's basically all of our needs. And we invite you to share in our journey as we prepare students for Level 21. Do you have any questions?
I know that you do evaluations of kindergarten, first and second grade in reading, and you find major problems at those levels.
Actually, it's not those levels, Donna, that gives us problems. When we do our RTI, are you familiar with that? When we do our Dibbles testing, our kindergarten and first grade students score really well. And for the most part, we probably have 90% of them scoring at benchmark. It's in second grade that we see it drop. And I've asked Charlene about this, and she says that is, they're seeing that nationwide, that they're seeing a gap beginning in second grade. Now, it's not that we don't have great second grade teachers, we do. I don't know what the answer is to it, but we're definitely looking at some research and trying to find out just what's going on with them. But now our kindergarten, and Myra can tell you when we.
I have 20 students. I think 13 of mine scored advanced on Dibbles. I had 13 advanced. I had 2 intensive, 1 strategic, and the rest were benchmark. So really 3 out of the class that were low.
Well, I was just wondering, you're not satisfied with the third and fourth grade reading scores.
No.
And I can understand.
How can you
Those
be?
are high, I know. But I mean, what's the problem? Is it disconnect between what we're teaching and testing in those primary levels? And in the third and fourth, we're testing in another way or other skills? I mean, I don't know. Are we scaffolding the skills into that?
I think a lot of it is that typically in the past, we have used the basal all the time, and the basal at especially kindergarten and first grade level doesn't do a lot of nonfiction. And I think it's the nonfiction reading that's getting them
It's more difficult.
much more difficult.
Actually,
Yes, and when we did our test analysis, it showed that it was the critical thinking part. What is the author's purpose? And that's a tough skill. May not sound it, but it is for a child to try to infer what the reason the author wrote the piece. And so that's one of the reasons that we're looking at how much nonfiction we are using, and we're going to up that this year. Research is showing that you need at least 60% of your reading to be nonfiction.
of course, the science and social studies, that's a natural.
That's a natural for it, and so I think that we will see that go up this year. But I'm still looking at why we're seeing that gap.
Well, I think a lot of it too is the test-taking skills. Up till they get into third grade, there's no really test-taking skills that they need to know until they are faced with the West test. So I think that is a lot to do with it too.
Also, there's a length of paragraphs that they're reading is short, and they're not used to getting 3 or 4 paragraphs, practicing.
Right.
There's all kinds of things. Questioning
Big
is,
jump.
there's just several things. I think they have a grip on it.
Well,
Yeah.
the difference between kindergarten and first, and then second, third, and fourth, is kindergarten and first, you're teaching children to read. Then when second grade, there's that transition year. Then third and fourth grade, you're not teaching them to read so much as you're teaching them to learn. The reading takes a different twist, and it's when it takes that twist that it's catching us. So we're working on it.
Like just, when I'm teaching this science, just for them to find an answer in that book, which I'm having the tier 2, you heard her talking about the tier 2 teachers, they're helping with that, like piggybacking me, okay, because they didn't have no idea how to find an answer in the paragraph. And it might be right there for them to see it, but it's still, they didn't know anything about how to find that answer. And then, like Debbie said, you get into these, author's purpose and inferring things, and that's a whole nother ballgame,
Well, many
so.
of actually our textbooks are written above grade level reading. But it's, we've known that for years, and it's just more difficult.
I'll tell you, the West test is extremely difficult. It is, we used to get a CPBS, and you can't even compare the two.
Well, like
There's such a
fourth graders,
difference.
they had 4 different documents that they had to keep on flipping back and forth and comparing those